Welcome to the show, guys. We are talking about starts and sits for fantasy football week 3. I get a ton of DMs on my Insta saying, hey, Joe, who do I start? This guy or that guy? This is the show you got to listen to because we go over all the optimal plays. Every position, I'll tell you if the player you have is an optimal play. So, for example, if you're just debating between a wide receiver A, wide receiver B, if you listen to the show, you'll know who has the better matchup, because sometimes it's a close call. Sometimes it's a gut feeling thing because they're two equal players on your team. You're like, who do I start, right? This show is going to help you because you can, the deciding factor could be, the optimal matchup. So starts and sits, start them, sit them for NFL Fantasy Football Week 3. Before you get into the show, guys, go download the app right now. Grab your phone. Very simple, guys. Grab your phone. Download the DraftKings app. Use promo code FFLion. You are eligible for up to $1 million worth of prizes if you use the code, guys. There's a shot at millions of dollars worth of prizes. Use promo code FFLions with the DraftKings app. They are the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL, guys. It's very simple, guys. Draft your team under the salary cap and see how it stacks up against the competition. Enhance that game watching experience, guys. I play every single week, and it's fun because you get to enhance that game watching experience because you're drafting every single week. If you've not gotten into DFS and daily fantasy, download the DraftKings app. Even if you're a veteran, get in there right now. DraftKings app, use promo code FFLion. Go do that right now. $5 minimum deposit is required. Some eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. Remember, use that promo code FFLion. Also, guys, Manscaped.com. Guys, Manscaped.com. Use promo code ShowerLion. Get some amazing products, guys. Fit and finish is awesome on these things. Skin-safe technology. Navigational light, as you can see here. Again, I use this all the time. Great for grooming. No nicks and cuts. Protect the boys. Your balls will thank you. Remember, use promo code ShowerLine. Save yourself 20%, guys. This is very, very important. Okay, guys? All right, so let's dive into this, all right? Let's dive into the starts and sits, okay? Here we go. I'm going to pull up the quarterbacks here, the best optimal plays at each position, and I'll give you some of the rougher matchups. Now, if you guys watch Thursday Night Football, CMC, Christian McCaffrey, is down with a hamstring. I know I was making some jokes about it on my social media because nobody touched him. Nobody touched him. He ran out. I know hamstring injuries happen when nobody touches you sometimes. You pull a muscle, you pull the hamstring, and away you go. I don't know the severity of the tear, but very unfortunately put up 6 points PPR, 4-point standard in yesterday's game. It is what it is. Injuries happen. This is why I tell you, robust RB, load up on those running backs so you have a lot of depth. So pick up Chuba Hubbard if you guys can in your leagues, okay? I don't know. If it's a bad tear, it could be a long time, could linger. I would imagine they're going to rest him next week as well. Give him some time to heal, okay? Let's start off with the optimal quarterbacks for this week going into this NFL Fantasy Week 3. Again, pay attention. This is really going to help you guys with your starts and sits. All right, so optimal matchup, easiest matchup versus position at quarterback, Daniel Jones, Carson Wentz, in that order. Justin Fields. Now, Justin Fields finally going to get the start. He's got a relatively easy matchup versus Cleveland, so we're going to see what he's made of. And again, he can now prepare for the game script and have that opportunity to really shine, and a pretty decent matchup for him as a quarterback. Russell Wilson, who's been red hot. Good matchup versus Minnesota this week. We got Jared Goff versus Baltimore. Should be able to light up the Baltimore secondary. Aaron Rodgers versus San Fran, not a bad matchup. Jimmy Garoppolo versus Green Bay. That Green Bay defense has literally been like Swiss cheese. So I'm excited to see Lamar Jackson. He's entertaining to watch. When he runs, he doesn't run. He is gliding. He looks really good. And he doesn't have a lot of weapons, so we got to give Lamar Jackson a ton of credit. Now, if you are playing daily fantasy in DraftKings, he is a little expensive, $700, $800. You're going to pay the price. Justin Herbert, a lot of criticism with him in the first couple of games. Could have had a better fantasy week last week. He had 2 touchdowns negated due to penalty. Wasn't his fault. It is what it is. He had a 20-pointer last week. I think he's the best quarterback in the league. We're going to have to see if that holds true. And this is a matchup where he's competing with the best quarterback in the league with KC. Let's see who's made of more in this matchup. I'm excited. Relatively easy matchup. Kyler Murray and Ryan Tannehill also have good matchups. Honorable mention here for a good matchup is Matt Stafford, okay? A lot of criticism about Josh Allen having some mediocre games. He's got a mid-range matchup this week, along with Matt Ryan, Trevor Lawrence, Baker Mayfield, Big Ben, and Kirk Cousins, all mid-range matchups. Guys that have it in tough. A lot of hype around Taylor Heineke right now. Taylor Heineke, listen, he's playing Buffalo this week. getting the nod, going full go. It's going to be interesting to see how he does. Again, a lot of people watching him, seeing if he's there. I'm into sports cards. His sports card is trending. He's been in the league for quite a bit. I don't know, man. If you don't have a better option for quarterback, start him, but he's got the toughest matchup versus position. Pat Mahomes got it in tough against the Chargers secondary. Jameis Winston, who came out 5 touchdowns week 1, 2 interceptions week 2. Very hard to trust. He's got it in tough versus New England. Mac Jones, Teddy Bridgewater, Dak Prescott, Zach Wilson, who's been ice cold, has got it in tough versus Denver. Tom Brady versus the Rams, and Derek Carr, pretty, 10th hardest matchup versus position. He's been red hot. I think they take the win. Is Derek Carr going to continue to perform on what people are calling, MVP level? I'm not seeing MVP level. I need to see more out of him for me to consider him MVP level, guys. That's absolutely ludicrous. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Again, Derek Carr, he's got to take him for a deep playoff run for me to think he's that good. I'm not sold. We're going to go to tight end. Optimal plays and starts and sits for tight ends. We're going to go wide receiver, and we're going to go to running back. Okay, so in regards to the tight end position, let's start off with the guys that have it a little bit tougher here. I'm just going to modify this. All right, so when you're looking at tight end, Jack Doyle, Indy versus Tennessee. Tennessee tends to play tight ends a little bit tougher. Just be aware of that. Pat Freiermuth, right? And anybody from Pittsburgh. Cincinnati tends to play tight ends a little bit harder. Mike Gesicki versus Vegas got it in a little bit tougher there. On my notes here, I've got Geno Smith getting it a little bit tough this week versus New Orleans. Logan Thomas versus Buffalo. We already said that Taylor Heineke's got it in tough. Noah Fant coming off a 13-point week last week, a little bit tough versus the Jets. They tend to play tight ends a little bit tougher. Guys that have optimal matchups, and this is good to hear. My guy TJ Hawkinson coming off 2 phenomenal weeks. Playing Baltimore, they tend to play tight ends a little softer. George Kittle finally has a good matchup now. He's playing Green Bay. And this is the Kinship's second round pick. If George Kittle does not perform with over 12 to 15 points this week, his name is mush, in my opinion, because he's absolutely crapped the bed for the first 2 weeks. He's got a good matchup. He's playing Green Bay. Now is the opportunity. Like George Kittle, this is your week, okay? Maybe a good option in DFS, but you're still paying $6,200 for him. When I can get another guy who's got a good matchup in Kyle Pitts playing the Giants at $4,900, coming off a 12-pointer game compared to George Kittle's 6-pointer game, okay? So I like Kyle Pitts in DFS this week. Good matchup, make or break week for Matt Ryan. They've got to get going. Calvin Ridley, Matt Ryan, Atlanta. Let's go, guys. Let's get it together, okay? Other easy matchups here. Robert Tonyan having a good matchup. 14 points last week playing San Fran. Pretty decent matchup. Mark Andrews. A lot of people asking about him. Good matchup as well playing Detroit. Detroit just crap in the bed. And Jared Cook. Relatively easy matchup versus KC. A lot of people asking about Rob Gronkowski. Mid-range matchup versus the Rams. $5,500 on DraftKings. Fair amount, pretty fair price to pay. But Gronkowski's been red hot in the red zone, putting up those consistent points, 29 points week 1, 20 points week 2. I think it continues. He is a primary target in the red zone, and that's somebody who Brady looks at. It's like easy money for Tom Brady. He's a plug and play every single week, even though they've got a ton of options there in that offense. Gronkowski really, really shining, and it's that rapport for the years, okay? Who is to sit here for wide receivers? And again, for year long, you can't sit Tyreek Hill, but he's got the hardest matchup versus position versus the Chargers. Again, coming off a terrible week. And again, this is something I warned you about with Tyreek Hill. He's got those boom and bust type of games, right? That's the thing with him. He's very volatile. And he was seeing a lot of double coverage last week. I think that continues this week. He's going to have it in tough. But again, what goes down must come up. Maybe it's not weak, but he does have it in tough. Amari Cooper, all of the wide receivers for the Cowboys, whoever's playing, if he's healthy. I know Amari Cooper's questionable. Make sure you take a look at his status. But CeeDee Lamb's got it in tough against Philly secondary. Second hardest matchup versus position. Other guys to monitor. Terry McLaurin. We talked about Taylor Heineke. Washington's got it in tough against Buffalo. Something to be aware of. Although, McLaurin is the number one target there, coming off a 31-point week. He's red hot right now. How do you sit him? You don't sit him in year long, but just be aware maybe in DFS that he is going to have it in tough. And if you are in year long, understand that, if he has a mediocre game, you know why. Same with Cortland Sutton, coming off a huge week last week. Got it in tough against the Jets secondary. They tend to play, wide receivers a little bit tougher. Who else do we got here? Devonte Adams, 5th hardest matchup versus position against San Fran. So understand, guys, Rodgers has it a little bit tougher this week. And Jalen Hurts had a good week, played San Fran week 2, and they played him pretty tough. I understand he had a couple deep balls in there. Jalen Hurts was looking good, and the secondary looked good, man. I mean, the corners were playing really sharp on Devonta Smith. I watched that game. So Devonte Adams is going to have it a little bit tough this week. Just be prepared for that going into week 3. So Godwin and all of the Buccaneers against the Rams defense having a little bit tougher, okay? Be aware of that. Again, Henry Ruggs got it in tough against Miami secondary, so Derek Carr will be tested this week, okay? Some mid-range matchups, just to be aware. Denzel Mims, Corey Davis against Denver, mid-range, not the easiest matchup. Justin Jefferson, Thielen, mid-range matchups. Let's take a look at some optimal matchups at wide receiver here for you guys. Some guys that have it in easy. Coming off a great week, a value guy I drafted in all my leagues. Michael Pittman's got it in easy versus Tennessee. DK Metcalf, Lockett, they've got it in easy versus Minnesota this week. A.J. Brown, now's the time to shine, man. Now's the time, brother. Let's go. You're a second-round pick. I told you to avoid this guy. I don't see the volume being there. He should have a good day with Indianapolis this week. Second easiest matchup versus position at the wide receiver, right? Same with Julio Jones. Come on, guys. Get it going, right? Odell Beckham Jr. should be back, and he's got a favorable matchup against Chicago secondary. I don't know, man. Is Odell going to do something? He's done nothing so far. He's been hurt. Again, typical, right? Got it pretty easy. Cooper Kupp coming off I would say an amazing week, 40 points, a guy that I was suggesting to grab in the 4th round-ish in NFL fantasy football drafts. And I told you, wait on wide receiver. There's a ton, and he is one of those guys that people were sleeping on, and he has got an easy matchup this week. 4th easiest matchup versus position. Let's keep lighting him up. Devonta Smith versus Dallas. Let's go. Tough week last week against San Fran. Had a good week 1. Hopefully Devonta Smith gets going again this week. Amon-Ra St. Brown and what's his name? Cephas. They have it pretty good against Quintez Cephas. Have it good against Baltimore this week. Pretty easy matchup for them as well. Marvin Jones, easy matchup at Jacksonville versus Arizona. He should do well this week. I'm looking for a breakout game for Trevor Lawrence. This is it. You got to make it happen, man. You're the first overall pick. Do something, right? Do something. DJ Shark had a bad week last week. 3 points. Good week 1. Gonna have to see what these guys do. Let's see if Jacksonville gets it going this week, okay? Very, very important. Stephon Diggs got it easy against Washington secondary. T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and that whole offense. Any wide receiver there. Got it in pretty good for Cincinnati versus Pittsburgh secondary. That's going to be an entertaining divisional match to watch, okay? Rondale Moore has got a mid-range matchup, him and Hopkins. Moore having the better game than Hopkins. Pretty frustrating to watch, okay? People are going to ask me to start and sit Deante Johnson. I'm hearing he's more doubtful than questionable. I've currently got him on my bench. He's on my teams. Even if he does play, I'm concerned about limited snaps. Maybe he's going to be rested this week. I'm glad it wasn't a serious injury, so I'm really happy that if he misses 1 week, I'm cool with that. Hopefully he comes back, okay? And that wraps up wide receivers. Let's move on to running backs here, optimal plays. Let's start off with the best matchups, okay? Tyson Williams, again, good matchup, very easy matchup versus Detroit. Problem is he going to get the volume? I'd fire him up if you have him, if you don't have better options, for sure. Dalvin Cook, he's got a good matchup for Seattle, but again, off the field 3 times last week. The ankle's going to be there. I would imagine he's going to be limited. Austin Eckler versus KC, got it in good. He was under concussion protocol for a couple minutes in the game there. He got knocked in the head. Austin Eckler had a good, safe week last week. Let's see if it continues. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a lot of hype about this guy. He was going in the 2nd round, in the 16-round drafts, which I said, I'm suggesting him here as a 2nd-round pick if you guys want him, but I am scared of volume. I don't really trust him. I don't trust the offense. He's been busting really bad so far, but he's got an easy matchup this week. Let's see how he does, okay? This is a good week for him to show. Melvin, Goran, Denver, pretty good matchup for them versus the Jets. And Cornell Patterson tearing it up last week. I was not a Davis guy. Davis has been looking mediocre at best. Cornell Patterson, I think, is the guy there. He was a wide receiver coming in the league, came in the league. I think he was playing for Minnesota. Now he's on Atlanta, and he seems to be a viable target because they're using him in the passing game. So he's getting the work, 24 points last week. and he's better value than Mike Davis on DFS. He's definitely a stardom this week. Josh Jacobs, he should be a go. I think he practiced this week. From what I understand, he's questionable, but he may be limited. Peyton Barber came in. He sucked last week. Kenyon Drake was playing. He sucked even with Jacobs out. Hopefully Jacobs gets the nod. I have him in one league as an RB3. Hopefully he plays. Saquon Barkley. This is your week, man. You got to make it happen. Really easy matchup versus position against Atlanta. Other honorable mentions that easy matchup are Jonathan Taylor. And mid-range matchup here actually is Darrell Henderson, Sony Michel. Darrell Henderson being banged up. I believe it's the rib. Look for Sony Michel to get a little more volume this week. Let's go over some of the guys that have it in tough. Michael Carter, who started heating up last week, got it in tough against Denver's rush defense. So if he performs well against Denver, look out. Michael Carter could be stepping up. Joe Mixon's got it in tough against Pittsburgh's rush defense. Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick. McKissick coming off a huge week last week and being a big thorn in the side of Antonio Gibson. Will continue to be a thorn in the side of Antonio Gibson. McKissick, Gibson have it in tough. Second hardest matchup versus position against Buffalo. Nick Chubb versus Chicago. Kareem Hunt. All those guys have it in tough this week. We'll see how they perform. Nick Chubb having a safe game last week. But Kareem Hunt always, again, going to be a thorn in their side, okay? Tony Pollard, mid-range matchup. Him and Ezekiel Elliott. We'll see. This is something to monitor if you are a Zeke Elliott owner. We saw Tony Pollard come in and be a thorn in the side of Zeke Elliott. So something I will be watching and monitoring this week. If you are a Tony Pollard owner, good time to be an owner, and you want to see him step up. If you're a Zeke owner, you want to see a regression in Tony Pollard this week. They've got a mid-range matchup. Understand that. My guy, James Robinson, my RB3 on some teams. Listen, he's just not doing well. He's not. 9 points last week. 8 points the week before. Volume, I see it kind of trending forward. But again, James Robinson's got to get it going. 12th hardest matchup versus position against Arizona's rush defense. Be cautious. Alvin Kamara owners. He's got the 11th hardest matchup versus position coming off a crappy game. 7 points last week. Unacceptable if you are a Kamara owner. And it was a bad week for Winston as well. This was one of the problems I said with Kamara. Hopefully it doesn't continue. If it does, I was right. With Breeze being out, this is going to be a problem going in for Kamara. Is he going to get those receptions, which is what makes Kamara and make him super viable for fantasy? That's something to monitor. Elijah Mitchell, I think he's questionable, but I think he's good to go. Actually, I think he's good to go. But again, he had that lingering issue here. Let me see. I think he's marked as questionable. 49ers, they're all banged up. But Elijah Mitchell, if you got him, if he's playing stardom, he's got a mid-range matchup. I know people are asking about him as well. And Derrick Henry coming off a monster week, has got a mid-range matchup. It won't be as easy for him against Indy's rush defense, but a guy you got to start year long. Best running back in the game right now, Derrick Henry. I don't know what to tell you, man. Just absolutely crushed it. Made up for his lack of performance in 11 points in week 1, 51 points in week 2, Derrick Henry. All right. Let's take a quick look at defenses. Now, if you're looking at streaming a defense here, I'll give you the optimal defenses to try to pick up. Giants versus Atlanta, unless Matt Ryan comes out with a coming out party, which who knows, right? Giants are a good defense theoretically based on the first 2 weeks of performance, but always take into account that there is talent on Atlanta and they could explode at any moment. Broncos versus the Jets. Again, you've seen the lack of performance in the 4 interceptions out of Zach Wilson in the game. I think it was 4 in a game. Broncos, that is the defense to start. I doubt they're available on waiver wire. Definitely consider starting him in DFS. That's the defense. That's my favorite defense of the week, unless Zach Wilson pulls something out of his ass and he gets going. Raiders versus Miami, Steelers versus Cincy, Colts versus Tennessee, Cardinals versus Jacksonville, Ravens versus Detroit. I like that one a lot. And football team versus Buffalo. Josh Allen off to a mediocre start. Football team can keep him neutralized. It could be a good defense to start for this week. And that's it, guys. That's a lot. Go back, listen again, break it down by, quarterbacks, tight ends. Go listen to the section you need to listen to. This is really going to help you guys with your starts and sits for NFL Week 3. If you're torn between a player or two, you know now which players have that optimal play. So if I mentioned, let's say, Zeke and Pollard having mediocre matchups, if you got their RB3 on their team for some weird reason, now you know that's a mid-range matchup. So you don't, in deeper leagues, you don't start their RB3. I don't even know who the RB3 is on that team. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, if I mentioned a player and I said they have a favorable matchup, the guys on the depth chart, if you own them, have, common sense, guys, okay? So make sure you guys sit the right people, because that can make or break your week, and that's a hard part, okay? Join the Fantasy 365 community below. We do an open starts and sits Q&A there. I try to jump in and dive into some of the questions. And guys, make sure you guys subscribe if you're new to the channel, thumbs up, and follow my crazy antics on social media. I'm out, guys. We'll talk soon.